Well, welcome everyone. And like Esther said, you picked a good week to be here. We are on week 2 of this series we're calling Life Hacks. And it is a series on the book of Proverbs. And like Esther said, the book of Proverbs is sort of God's book of wisdom to us. And so we're encouraging everyone to get into the book of Proverbs, not only read it, but read it and then apply it to your life. And so especially starting today, I think the Proverbs are all good, but it gets really good at chapter 9. It gets very practical and easy to apply, so get into it. Read it every day, and then try and apply at least one of those verses to your life. And it's simple. Last week I said it's kind of like God's Twitter account to us, because they're all like 160 characters or less, and so they're easy to read, to memorize, and it's very practical. You can apply it to your life. So we're into this book called the Book of Proverbs. We'll be spending a large part of the summer here. Well, it is God's book of wisdom, and in the book, the authors, they use one literary tool over and over and over again, and it's contrast. And so the author is contrasting, and largely he's contrasting the wise person and the wise person's behaviors with what they call the foolish person and the foolish person's behaviors. And so we can see there's two choices we can make, and we want to choose the wise option. So last week I introduced you to a man named Larry Walters. And those of you who were here will remember that Larry Walters was the man who got the bright idea to get 36 helium weather balloons and attach them to his deck chair and then see what would happen, right? And so we saw that he floated up to 15,000 feet, and he floated around for 14 hours, and then he floated into LAX airspace, right? And so we decided last week that was not a very wise thing to do. We took a vote, and I think it was unanimous that was foolish, not wise. Well, I'm going to introduce you to another person today, and we're going to decide as a group if this person is wise or if he's foolish. And so I want to introduce you to Joey Jaws Chestnut. All right, and this is Joey. Looks like a likable fellow. And so Joey gained some more fame this week. Some of you may have heard of Joey. Joey, for the 10th time, won the Nathan's Famous Hot Dog eating, 4th of July hot dog eating contest at Coney Island. All right, so he's entered this for 11 years. This is his 10th year winning out of 11 years. This year, he set a personal best, 72 hot dogs in 10 minutes. All right, that's what 72 hot dogs looks like. All right, and he ate that in 10 minutes. So we're going to decide here in a minute, was that foolish or was that wise? But I want you to have all the information before you pass judgment. All right, so that's what 72 hot dogs look like. For those of you who are into nutrition, that's the equivalent of 20,000 calories. All right, so the daily recommended caloric intake for a man his size is about 2,000. And so he ate 10 times the recommended calories in the 10-minute span. Okay, so a little more information. But you should know he did this all for the coveted mustard belt, which you see him showing on his shoulder, and $10,000. Okay, so by a show of hands, how many of you think he was wise? There are a few hot dog lovers out there. And how many of you think he was foolish? All right, it's almost unanimous. I think he was foolish. 20,000 calories in hot dogs is too many. All right, so that's more than a year's worth of hot dogs that you should eat. Anyway, but we all have moments where we're like Larry and we're like Joey, and we make decisions that in hindsight we realize were poor decisions, that they're bad decisions. You know, hindsight is 20/20. And so we're looking at this book called the Proverbs because God, in his goodness to us, in his wisdom, has said, listen, I can save you a whole lot of heartache and embarrassment and regret and mistakes. Just read my book of wisdom, and life will be better for you. So we're looking at this series called Life Hacks. We're looking at the book of Proverbs, and I'm encouraging you, like Esther has already done, to read a chapter a day. Read it and find one verse in there. Read it again and again until there's one that jumps out at you and says, I can apply that today. You know, the point of Bible reading isn't just to tick it off that you've read it. It's so that it will change your life. Right? So read it and find one verse, just one verse a day, and say, I'm going to try and live that out today. So get into chapter 9. If you haven't been keeping up with us, just start at chapter 9. Start today and go from here. And like I said, this is when it gets really good, so you're starting on the best day. You missed chapters 1 through 8, which are good, but it's just kind of Solomon saying to his boys, listen to me, boys, listen to me, boys, listen to me, boys, over and over and over again. So now it gets really, really good. And so we're going to look at Proverbs today. We're going to talk about the most powerful muscle in the body. How many of you know what the most powerful muscle in the body is? Right? Turn and tell your neighbor, right? So we keep you all honest. And not the most powerful, but relative to size. Sorry, I should give you all the information. The most powerful muscle relative to size is your mouth. All right? How many of you got it right? Now, some of you are saying the mouth isn't a muscle. Right? It's a big open cavity. But it's connected to several very powerful muscles. 2 of the 5 most powerful muscles relative to size are connected to our mouth. The masseter muscle, which is connected to our jaw, which helps us to bite. You know that we can create 200 pounds of bite force with this tiny little muscle. It's very, very powerful. And then our tongue, also not very large compared to other muscles in our body, but very, very powerful. And the Bible agrees with us that this tiny little muscle is very powerful. And the book of Proverbs is full of wisdom, how to control and how to use this muscle for good and not for destruction. In Proverbs 13, verse 3, it says this: death and life are in the power of the tongue. Right? Death and life are found in the power of the tongue. Our tongue has incredible potential, both for good and for harm. And you know this to be true. Now, your parents probably taught you the rhyme, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you. That was a lie, wasn't it? Right? Mom and Dad lied to you when they taught you that rhyme, because most of us, if not all of us, have experienced that words can hurt, that words are powerful, that words have this incredible destructive potential. Now, there's also potential for life-giving words, and hopefully we've all experienced that as well, but almost all of us, I'm sure, have felt the death-dealing power of words. Now, I have a fairly poor memory. If you know me, I'm kind of forgetful. I don't remember much from childhood at all, much to my parents' regret. They were great parents. I don't remember any of it. To be honest, I have a hard time remembering yesterday, so forget childhood. Most of the times, I wish that wasn't true. But when it comes to mean words that have been said to me, most of them I've forgotten. But there are a few times when someone said something hurtful to me that it stuck. And so when I was 13 years old, I was in grade 8, and I got a brand new pair of pants. And I loved these pants. Right? When I felt like the man on the schoolyard when I had these pants on. So I wore these pants to school one day, and I'm strutting around in my pants. I know everybody's looking at my pants and loving my pants. And this other boy in the school came up to me and said, "Hey, I used to have a pair of pants just like that." Right? I puffed up my chest and strutted a little meaner, and then he said, "Until my mom got a job," right? It's okay. You can laugh because everybody else did when he said it. And I felt in that moment the power of death in a person's words. No, I didn't die, but it robbed me of life. And that's what death, isn't it? That's what killing is. It takes life from someone. So this boy, in that moment, I felt the power to... That's over 30 years ago, and I remember it word for word. Words are powerful. They have incredible potential for good, but they have incredible destructive power as well. Similar story, the next year in grade 9. Grade 9 is a difficult year. My mom made it worse on me. Is my mom here today? I don't know. I've forgiven her for this. So her and her friend tricked me into getting a perm for grade 9. I'm glad you can all enjoy that. Which is, I know it's funny now because I don't have hair. So she tricked me into getting a perm. And so I went to school, and I was challenged in the area of fashion in my early teens. So that made it worse. But I had this yellow, my wife thinks this is hilarious. I tried to find a picture. I think maybe I tore them all up and got rid of them years ago. I actually went to my mom's and looked for a picture. I couldn't find it. Anyway, so make it matters worse, I had this yellow sweater that I loved. And so me and my friend were grade 9, and to get to our classroom, we had to go through the senior hallway, the dreaded senior hallway. So there I am, I'm walking down the hall with my perm and my bright yellow sweater on. And this senior says to his friend, "Look at this fashion statement in the yellow sweater." And his friend laughed at me. And again, I felt the murderous power of words. And 30 years later, I remember that word for word. And I have a terrible memory. Now, that guy was an incredible jerk, right? And it's like that yellow sweatshirt was a giant target on my back. And that whole year, he tried to catch me and put me in a locker and lock me in there. And while I didn't have much fashion sense, at least I was very, very fast. And he never caught me, all right? So I survived grade 9 and made it to grade 10 and on. But words are powerful, and they have incredible destructive power. Thankfully, I grew up in a very emotionally healthy home where my parents built into my life, and I knew the power of words of affirmation and words of love. My parents told me they loved me and that I had potential and that God loved me and that I could do anything that I set my heart to. And there was never a moment where I doubted my worth because I had this family who counteracted those negative words by building into me. And I had this great faith community who loved me and built into me with powerful words they spoke into my life. So I overcame it. So I'm able to stand here as a relatively well-adjusted adult in spite of those mean things that were said to me because they were counteracted by powerful words of affirmation. And so the words we speak are powerful. Proverbs 13:3 says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue." We need to recognize that and recognize that the things that come out of our mouth have the potential to change the trajectory of someone's life. I can joke about it, but some of you have been on the receiving end of words that are negative words that are affecting your life to this day. Someone important to you. The kids in the schoolyard didn't mean anything to me. And so their words, they hurt in the moment, but it rolled off my back for the most part. But what my parents felt about me and my close friends and my church community and my aunts and uncles and brothers and sisters, the words that they said to me and about me, those are the ones that mattered the most. And so it built me up. And in spite of my terrible fashion choices, I've turned out okay. I think. Anyway. Now, all of us have been on the receiving end of positive and negative words, I'm sure. But the flip side of that is true as well. All of us have been on the giving end of positive and negative words. And so we're going to look at the book of Proverbs today and ask God to help us to do better with this incredible gift that he's given to each of us. Right? God has given us the ability to speak. And when he gave us the ability to speak, he knew the power and the potential in this gift. And we, those of us who know him and have experienced his goodness, we need to harness this for goodness. And so we're going to talk about, from the book of Proverbs, what that looks like. And parents, I want to encourage you to never stop building into your kids' life with the words that you say. Because they live in a world that's trying to tear them down. But your words are most important. And you need to let them know their value. So my son Aiden, he's away today. He's away for the next couple weeks. He's away in California, so he's taking his first trip alone, and he's flown out to California for 3 weeks, and he's attending Bethel Church's Worship University. And so you're all familiar with Bethel, whether you know it or not, because I think 3 of the 4 songs we sang today came from that church. And so Aiden has flown out there for 3 weeks to study worship from this church that just has this incredible anointing in the area of worship. And so as we're driving him to the airport yesterday morning early, I just took a moment, I just said, man, I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of this choice you've made and how you've gone after this. It's something you wanted, and you did all the research, and you're paying for it yourself, and you're investing in God's plan for your life. Now, I wasn't as eloquent as all that in the moment, but when I said to him, I'm proud of you, that was all contained in there. And so and even in the moment, you can feel that the affirmation and his sense of worth just rise up inside of him. Parents, our words are so powerful when it comes to our kids. And so make sure you're using this gift from God to do good in your home. All right, well, we're going to look at Proverbs, but before we get there, I want to share from James chapter 3. And it says this in James chapter 3. A bit in the mouth of a horse controls the whole horse. So imagine that, this tiny little bit in this giant animal, it controls it. A small rudder on a huge ship in the hands of a skilled captain sets a course in the face of the strongest winds. Tiny little rudder, incredible control over this giant ship in the face of incredible opposition. Here, A word out of your mouth may seem of no account, but it can accomplish nearly anything or destroy it. Power of life and death are in our words. It continues. It only takes a spark, remember, to set off a forest fire. A careless or wrongly placed word out of your mouth can do that. By our speech, we can ruin the world, turn harmony to chaos, throw mud on our reputation, send the whole world up in smoke, and go up in smoke with it, smoke right from the pit of hell. This is scary. You can tame a tiger, but you can't tame a tongue. It's never been done. The tongue runs wild, a wanton killer. With our tongues, we bless God our Father. With the same tongue, we curse the very men and women He made in His image. Curses and blessings out of the same mouth. So much potential, so much power for good or for harm. And so we're going to spend some time looking at the way we communicate with one another, because communication is everything. We're involved in it all the time. So this is something we need to be good at. And so our world is getting easier to communicate, but I don't think we're getting any better at communication. This is a picture of my communication folder on my phone. I have so many options to communicate, right? This isn't all of them. There's a second page with other apps on there. The opportunities to communicate are endless. You know that last year, the Oxford English Dictionary introduced 1,000 new words to the dictionary. 1,000 more words that you and I can use to communicate with each other. I'm not sure we're getting any better at it. Words like this, I don't know how helpful they are, but YOLO made its way into the dictionary officially last year. You're familiar with this one? I don't think people use it anymore. They were late getting it in there. How about this one? This is a great word. Forget about it, right? that is now in the Oxford English Dictionary, right? Forget about it, right? I want to work that one into my vocabulary. Here's one that's not part of my vocabulary. Yoglates, I think is how you pronounce that. The fitness routine combining Pilates exercise with postures and breathing from yoga, right? Yoglates. And this one, I thought this one was in there already, but apparently it's new. Cheese ball, right? This word made it in someone or something lacking taste, style, or originality. That was me in grade 9, right? Or the deep fried appetizer. We have all these options when it comes to communicating, but I'm not sure we're that great at it. And I think the solution might be for some of us, and this is where we're going to focus today, is say less. If we could just get around to speaking less, we'd be further ahead. Proverbs 21, it says this: watch your words and hold your tongue. You'll save yourself a lot of grief. Speak less. That's the Bible's counsel, the Bible's wisdom. Just talk less. You'll save yourself a lot of grief. You and other people. If we would learn to, like my mom said, bite your tongue, you'd save yourself a lot of grief. You know, and I think I may have mentioned this earlier, but for every negative thing you hear, psychologists tell us that it takes somewhere between 7 and 20 positive affirmations to counter the effect of that one negative word. Right? So every time someone says something negative to you that tears you down, that speaks death into your life, it takes you, depending on your person, between 7 and 20 other positive affirming words to counteract the damage done by that one word. And so we could save ourselves all kinds of grief if we just stopped talking, right? We wouldn't have to counteract all the wrong things we said. So that's what I want to focus on today. I want to focus on not speaking and when to keep our mouths shut. Look what it says in Proverbs 10:19. Too much talk leads to sin, so be sensible. Keep your mouth shut. All right? So this is where we're going to focus today. And can you guys, there's a list in my PowerPoint, I think I skipped over all the verses in Proverbs on speech. Right? And actually, it's not all of them. This is an exhaustive list. I added more to it this morning as I was reading and found some more I added to it. The Proverbs are full of what we should say, what we shouldn't say, how we should say it, how we shouldn't say it. I know it's too small to read, so for those of you who take notes, if you want it, I'll email it to you. It's not exhaustive. There's more in it. There's so much that I could say this morning to share with you some of the wisdom that God has given to us, because we've made so many mistakes in the area of the things we've said, and maybe you even have regrets about the things you've said to people. If we could just get a hold of God's wisdom, we could save ourselves a lot of grief. So rather than talking about what we could say and how we should say it, I'm just going to focus on today on when you should keep your mouth shut. And that will be enough for today. And as you read the Proverbs over the month, you'll find some of the other wisdom that comes from God. All right, so the first occasion when we should keep our mouth shut is when we don't know the facts. All right? Proverbs 18:13, it says this, spouting off before listening to the facts is both shameful and foolish. Right? Before you get all the facts, don't draw a conclusion, don't make a judgment, don't make a decision, and don't tell anybody, right? You need to get all the facts before you speak about a situation. Proverbs 18:17, here's why that's true. The first to speak in court sounds right until the cross-examination begins. You know, there's a proverb that that's not in the Bible, but it's in line with what these proverbs from the Bible are saying, is that there's two sides to every story, right? And when you've only heard one side of the story, you don't have the full story. And most of the time, neither side of the story are completely true. To get the full picture, you need to hear both sides of the story. So you should never make a decision. You should never pass a judgment. You should never speak about a situation, the Bible tells us, until you have both sides, until you have the full story, until you have all the facts, and then you're in an intelligent place to speak about it. And so the first time we need to keep our mouth shut is when you don't have all the facts. The second occasion when we need to keep our mouth shut is this, when you haven't thought about it. Think before you speak, right? That's not in the Bible, but it's in the Bible, right? It's a paraphrase of these Proverbs. Proverbs 21, verse 23, watch your tongue and keep your mouth shut. I love how often, just shut your mouth, right? Watch your tongue and keep your mouth shut, and you'll stay out of trouble. Think before you speak. Last week, I did a survey. I said, how many of you gotten yourself in trouble by the words you've said? Like the whole place put both hands up. Like this thing is dangerous. It gets us into trouble. Proverbs 18:2, fools care nothing for thoughtful discourse. All they do is run off at the mouth. It's like words are coming out faster than they can think, and it gets them into all kinds of trouble. You know all those social media apps I showed earlier? This has just highlighted this problem. The number of times I'll be reading through Facebook, and I'll see someone's post, I'm thinking, oh man, they should have thought before they spoke. That should not be up for the whole world to see. They're going to regret that tomorrow. You know, when they've calmed down and they've come to their senses and they've had an opportunity to think about it, but it's too late. How many people have seen it? Right? So often we speak before we think, and the Bible's counsel is, before you respond, even after you get all the facts, both sides of the story, all the information, spend some time thinking about it before you utter your response. And you go on the record about how you feel about something. Think about it. I would say to those of you who are Christians, I think sometimes we're bad for this. To go back to Facebook, sometimes I'll see posts on Facebook and reposts, and someone has posted something and they just shared it along, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I know that's not true, right? And so it'll be about some atrocity that's happened in the world, maybe to Christians, and so I'll get on, and sure enough, it's not true. You get onto one of those Snopes.com, and it's not true. We need to think before we speak, because I try to live my faith fairly openly, including in all my social media feeds, because I want my friends to know just how good God is, and that He's making this incredible difference in my life, and so I try and live it openly, but I never want to misrepresent Jesus. I never want to seem foolish to the world, and sometimes when we just, oh, that must be true, and forward it along without fact-checking and thinking about it, often that happens. So before you see something, just forward it on like it's true, make sure it's true. And that is what the Proverbs teaches us. Keep your mouth shut when you haven't thought about it. Third one is this. Keep your mouth shut when you don't know what to say. Proverbs 17 says this. A truly wise person uses few words. You know, wise people speak less. That's what it's saying. The wiser you are, the less you say. A person with understanding is even-tempered. Even fools are thought wise when they keep silent. With their mouths shut, they seem intelligent. All right? Yes. If you want to fool everybody, just be quiet. All right? Even a fool seems wise when he shuts his mouth. Right? You don't have anything to say, keep your mouth shut. Proverbs 12:15, it says, fools think their own way is right, but the wise listen to others. Sometimes the best thing we can do is not speak into a situation, but let others speak into our situation. Just be quiet and let someone with more experience, with more wisdom, speak words into your life. You just sit there and be quiet and receive it. You know, God has given them that gift. He's given them this powerful gift to speak into your life. And sometimes we just need to be quiet and let them speak to us and receive that truth. And just fool everybody. You guys all look so wise this morning, right? Nice and quiet. I'm the fool on the platform with 1,000 words to say. All right, the next one. When to keep your mouth shut? When you're angry or you lack self-control. Proverbs 12, verse 18. The words of the reckless pierce like swords, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. Isn't that true? That's a power of life and death. When someone speaks in anger, often their words are cutting. And they say some things that they're going to regret later. And usually it's the people they really love and they care about. But in the heat of the moment, in anger, this barrage comes out of their mouth and it tears the person they love and value down. The tongue of the wise brings healing. So if I'm going to speak words that tear down, that's foolish. Or I'm going to speak words that build up and bring life, that's wise. I want to not speak when I'm angry. Proverbs 4:17, it says this. Short-tempered people do foolish things, and schemers are hated. So that doesn't really say anything about our speech, but it applies that when we're angry, we do things that we regret. And sometimes when we're angry, we say things we don't mean, right? And we'll say, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean it. But the problem is the person you've said it to knows that you meant it in the moment, right? And in your anger, you didn't have restraint. And you said something that was inside of you. And it's cut them like a sword. It's pierced them like a sword. And the damage is already done. So when we're angry, the Bible tells us just to shut up. This is great advice. Whenever you're having a discussion, and this discussion turns to a disagreement, and our voices begin to raise, and our body posture begins to change, and we start to feel angry, you know the best thing we can do? Just shut up. And I would say for couples, those of you who are in a marriage relationship, sometimes when you're in a disagreement and it's beginning to escalate and you can feel yourself getting angry, the best thing you can say for that person you love, say, you know what, I just need 5 minutes. Can we just take a break? Can we catch our breath? Can we cool down, let our blood pressure lower a little bit, and then come back when we can have a discussion again rather than a disagreement? Sometimes the best thing you can do is stop talking. And whether that's 5 minutes or an hour or 5 hours, take a break and come back when both of you are calm enough to have a discussion. Because what happens when we're angry, we stop listening. Right? So there's no point in having a discussion anyway. So when you get to the point where the conversation is heated, the best thing you can do is just hit the pause button and say, let's get back to this. It's important. This discussion is important, but we need to take 5. And you probably need to arrange for that as a couple in a time of peace. Right? You need to say, that's really good advice. And the Bible tells us when we're angry, we need to be quiet. So in our marriage relationship, let's take this wisdom and apply it. That when we're having a disagreement, either one of us at any point can say, let's hit pause and go our own way for a little bit and then come back together. The flip side of that is, in Ephesians chapter 4, and we don't have it today, it says, be angry, but don't sin. All right? So it's possible to be angry. That's not a sin. But the problem is that short-tempered people do sinful things. So be angry, but don't sin. So stop yourself. But the rest of that verse says, but don't let the sun set on your anger. So don't just stop the conversation permanently. Take a break because you're angry and you're going to start saying things you regret. But then before nightfall, before you go to bed, sort it out. All right? Spend some time praying. Spend some time talking to God about it on your own. Get your heart right. Remember that you love this person, that you value them, that they're important to you. And while you disagree, you want to come to some sort of agreement. And the two of you come back together and then have the conversation in a time of peace. I don't think any of us should speak when we're angry. It's not a sin to do it. Jesus, it says, was angry and spoke. He said that righteous indignation welled up inside of him, and he spoke to the crowds, and you get that he was pretty heated. But most of us aren't up to that challenge, that we can be angry and speak and not sin. All right? Jesus was on a whole other level. All right? My best advice to you is when you're angry, zip it. Shut your mouth. Calm down, and then address it when you're in a right mind, in a right emotional state, to speak without hurting someone. Because so often the people we hurt with our words are the people we love the most, right? And so we don't want to do that. So when you're angry, just hit pause. And then the fifth occasion when we need to shut our mouth is when it's gossip. Proverbs 17, verse 20, it says this: "The crooked heart will not prosper, the lying tongue tumbles into trouble." Gossip will just get you into trouble because it has a way of circling back, and the person you're talking about finds out about it, and they find out you're the one speaking, and now there's all kinds of relationship issues. And then other relationships are affected, and it just causes a great big mess. And then Proverbs 10:18, it's about as clear as the Bible could be. Slandering others makes you a fool. Just foolish. It's foolish to talk about people behind their back, to talk negatively about people. It's foolishness. This is the definition of gossip. One's just a standard definition. The second one is based on the biblical words for gossip. Gossip is casual or unconstrained conversation or reports about other people, typically involving details that are not confirmed as being true, right? Don't talk until you have all the facts. Then the second part, a gossiper is a person who has privileged information about people and proceeds to reveal that information to those who have no business knowing it. That's what gossip is. I heard some teaching when I was younger, and it stuck with me, so it obviously made an impact. They said, if you're not part of the problem or part of the solution, it's none of your business. That's great advice. If you're not part of the problem or part of the solution, it's none of your business. If you're talking about someone and you wouldn't say what you're saying if they were standing beside you, it's gossip, right? And we should have no part of it. And I want to be, as your pastor, I want to be really honest. And I don't know why, but as I was preparing for this and praying about it, this is the part where I really felt God saying, this is what the church needs at this point. This one on gossip. I'm not aware of any gossip happening in the church, but the Holy Spirit knows what's going on, right? We have this incredible community, and I'm so happy with the level of community that's developing at New Covenant. Well, I see all kinds of positive signs that this is a healthy church. I see people getting involved. We had a little bit of financial struggle, and the church rallied around. I hear about a family in the church that's going through a hard time, and them calling friends from within the church to come and speak life into them and to counsel them and support them. Not calling me, calling others from the church, which is so healthy. Catherine Van Weingarten away in Cameroon, and I felt the whole church rally around her last week and pray for her. I had people calling me this week, what's going on with Catherine? What can we do to help Catherine? What can we do to help the Van Weingardens? There's raising support to send Neil, who led worship this morning, to some leadership training. There's so much good happening here. This community is so strong and healthy and vibrant and poised to do some incredible things in our city. The devil would love to tear it all down. And I think God is saying, shut your mouth. When it comes to gossip, check yourself. Are you gossiping about maybe some other people who hear? I don't hear it. People aren't gossiping with me. I don't know. But as I was planning and preparing and praying, God said, you need to hang on this one for a little bit. So we're hanging on it for a few minutes. All right? Maybe some of us are speaking out of turn. Maybe we're speaking about people in a way that we wouldn't speak to them if they were in the room. And maybe we're speaking about them not because we want to bring resolution and solution and bring healing to the situation, but because we love to talk about other people's dirty laundry. I'm not hearing it, but I think it's happening somewhere. So, shut your mouth. It's good to be able to say that from the platform. In Jesus' name, right? Gossip is two-sided, though. There's those of us who speak it, and there's those of us who listen to it. And both are equally dangerous. And so the caution is not to speak it and not to listen to it. Look what else it says in Proverbs 20, verse 19. A gossip goes around telling secrets. Here's the Bible's advice. So don't hang around with them, right? If you have someone who who likes to talk about other people's dirty laundry, speak negatively about others, stop hanging out with them. You don't need that in your life. Or just tell them to shut their mouth, right? Proverbs 16, verse 27. This is from the Message translation. Mean people spread mean gossip. Their words are a destructive blaze. Right? It's just mean. You don't need that in your life. So don't speak it. Don't listen to it. And if someone comes to you and gossips to you, say, you know what? I don't want to know. I don't want to hear that. I'm not part of the problem. I'm not part of the solution. It's none of my business. And just move on. Here's the danger of if someone's speaking negatively about someone else to you, I'll let you in on a secret. They're probably speaking negatively about you to someone else. Right? You don't need that in your life. So when it comes to gossip, shut your mouth. Galatians 5, verse 14 and 15, it says this, love your neighbor as yourself. But if you're always biting and devouring one another, watch out, beware of destroying one another. Paul knew this great church in the city of Galatia. There are lots of awesome things going on and relationships building and, just great things happening for God and his kingdom. And Paul says to them, stop gossiping, right? Love your neighbor as yourself. He points them back to Jesus, which is what I want to do today when it comes to gossip. Gossip is so far from the character of Jesus. There should be no part of anyone's life who's trying to follow Jesus, who's being conformed into the image of Jesus, who wants to live a life that celebrates God, who wants their life to point others to Jesus. Gossip has no place. It's so far from what Jesus wants from you and for you. Love your neighbor as yourself. All right? All right, so 5 occasions the Bible tells us we should shut our mouth, or we should keep our mouth shut. We should shut up. Number 1, when you don't have all the facts. Number 2, when you haven't thought about it. Number 3, when you don't know what to say. Number 4, when you're angry and lack self-control. And number 5, when it's gossip. And then in Proverbs 21, verse 23, it says this, too much talk leads to sin. Be sensible and keep your mouth shut. That one's probably worth memorizing. I told you they're simple, less than 60 characters. Memorize it, tape it on your bathroom mirror, whatever you need to do to remember it. Because this will save you all kinds of grief. It'll save you all kinds of trouble. If we could take this word of wisdom from God and apply it to our life, it's going to make a big difference. Proverbs 13:3, I'm going to end with this one. Those who control their tongue will have a long life. Opening your mouth can ruin everything. So there it is. The Bible's counsel to us, when it comes to the power of our words, more often than not, just choose not to speak. All right? Just stop some of the words you've been saying that are destructive and hurtful. Take every occasion to build up and encourage and to bless. But do your best to control the negative power of your tongue, because it can do so much harm.